welcome to the Training in My Life podcast, episode 69. This week, I'd like to do more of a vlog because I have the week off work and I thought it'd be nice to share my thoughts with you on each day. Today is Monday. It was nice to have a lie-in and not get up at 5 o'clock for work. So straight away I appreciated that. The weather wasn't very good. I didn't go out till about 10 o'clock because the weather wasn't very good. I had breakfast and then I sat and did some editing. And then I decided where I was going filming and I went out about 10 o'clock. I was planning to catch a train, but on the way to the station I figured out that buses would get me to where I was going better. So that's what I did. And I then arrived in an area I hadn't been to before, and I was following Google Maps, and I was going to a garden centre that I'd heard about a year ago. And somehow that never got into my filming schedule. And because I've recently been to a big garden centre, I thought it'd be a nice contrast to go to sort of a small one. So that's what I did this morning. And it was quite interesting to find out how I felt about it, because it was intriguing finding it in the first place, and it was sort of tucked away. And it was laid out completely differently to the big one I went to. This one was almost like on a hillside, and it had these little slopey paths doing a loop round the area that it was set in. And I suppose looking back, there was a big volume of plants in a small area, but what I was looking for, they didn't really have enough selection of. I was looking again for something that was flowering to put in the front garden so that I can see it when I get home in the evening, when I go out in the morning, that kind of thing. And they had lots of green plants, but not so many flowering ones, or if they did, they were small ones. So that's what I was doing this morning. And quite by accident, I found, walking down these different streets following Google Map, I came across some street art, and I didn't know that there was going to be any, but I was taking photos of those to go in the next street art video I do. I'm not doing one every week from now on. I tend to do them in sort of bunches, and I'll be able to do one every week for 3 or 4 weeks, and then there'll be a gap because I'm waiting to take trips to different areas of London where there's more street art that I can record. And at this time of year, when the weather isn't great, things also don't look so nice as when it's in the brilliant sunshine and stuff. So that's sort of an ongoing short that I'm getting quite a lot of those lately. I open a folder on my laptop in my, I call it my shorts backlog, because they're sort of half recorded, and then I add to them as and when I see things, and I take photos and videos, and then they gradually build up. And when I know by looking at the amount of footage whether it's enough to put into a short. And I know that's not what a lot of people do with shorts. A lot of people press record at something, and then 60 seconds later they shut it off and then they upload that. But my shorts tend to be photographs, sometimes a little bit of video, but then I edit them in Resolve and put music to them. Yeah, that's how I do them. So that this is why I have sort of folders that gradually build up. And sometimes I see something and I think, that would make a good short. And then I put it in a folder, and then I have to wait until I see something similar again. I have one for like sunrises and sunsets, which is which is just random and is when I happen to see a really good one. Often when I'm travelling to work, that will happen. I cross the River Thames going into Victoria on a train, and sometimes looking down the river towards the Shard, if you from the other end, and if the sky is all reds and golds and stuff, then that is when I'll try and get a bit of video or a photograph, and then that just sits in that folder till the next one and the next one, and then it gradually builds up. So yeah, I was doing some of that this morning, and and then when I got home from that, I finished off recording some footage of the clothes that I'd bought on Saturday, trying those on, and managed to record it whilst chopping off my head. And I looked at it and I thought, I've got to do it again. Then this afternoon I've chilled a bit and I've watched some YouTube. I've got to get dinner in a minute, and then this evening I've got editing of a short to do to put out tonight, because it won't go out till about 7 o'clock, and it's currently just gone 5. So yeah, that's been my day. It's been a nice start to my week off. It's it's been productive, but it's also been chilled, and I think that's a nice combination. And this is my birthday eve, so I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, which is in the hands of my son. I've said to him, he wanted to know what I wanted to do. Did I want to go somewhere? Did I want to go out for dinner? Anyway, I've just left it all up to him. And we are going somewhere because I know he's bought train tickets. I just don't know where. It will be a complete surprise, and I really like that, because it's like I don't have to overthink anything. I just turn up and that's it. So yeah, looking forward to that tomorrow. Hello everyone, this is now Wednesday, but I'm going to recap what I did on Tuesday. Tuesday was my birthday and I went on a day trip. There is going to be a video from that, and there's going to be a short trailer in it, but by the time this podcast comes out, those will both have been out. So on Tuesday, I went a day trip to Cardiff. I've never been there before. It was a surprise trip from my son, and we had a wonderful time. He'd never been to Cardiff either, so we were exploring the city, and we went to the castle, and it was an amazing castle. I mean, quite often when you visit castles, they're in different states of repair, and some of them are just a basic structure. Some of them are set up as a house with rooms almost in it, sort of decorated in an era that they're showing the castle use of. But this was really great. There were some spectacular rooms inside part of it. There was also a keep, which was like a tower which you could climb up, and there was a lot of incredibly steep steps, but we made it to the top and the views up there were spectacular. So that was great to have gone up there. We also explored the town, and there was a really good mall. And at first we thought it was only small, and then we realised it had sort of lots of arms off it. And it was interesting to see that that it had the same sort of capital city stores with all the designers that Oxford Street in London has. They have the same in Cardiff. But also there were stores that we don't see in London. Carl Jr.'s, which my son had experienced in America. I'd never been to before, but we had lunch there. And there was also Tim Hortons, which I've experienced in Canada, and so has he. And so we bought things from there as well. So it was a really good day out, sort of an all-round, you got a bit of history, you got a bit of shopping, you've had a wander around and you've experienced a different city. And it was an experience where we we compared it to London and also said the crowds weren't the same, there were less people, and there was a different atmosphere, much more chilled, but there was also an element of some winos about the place, and we could see as the hours got later in the evening how there was a certain element you'd have to be wary of. But every city I can think of gets a bit like that in the evening. You have to just be sensible and have your street smarts about you. And we travelled back on the train, and it all worked out really, really well. We were totally exhausted when we got back, I have to admit. But then we ordered takeout for dinner, and we got a birthday cake, and we got presents, and I filmed some but not all of that day because I wanted some to be private family time. But that was yesterday. Anyway, on to today. Okay, Wednesday. This is what I did today. I went to a museum at Biggin Hill, and Biggin Hill strategically was a very important aerodrome between England and Europe during wartime. So it was a major location and very important. And I knew there was a museum there. And around the 10th of November, we have Remembrance Day in the UK. And I wanted to go and film a video at Biggin Hill Museum, which I could then put out just before Remembrance Day, because the museum is dedicated to people who served at that aerodrome, and it's sort of their story. When I got inside, one of the first things I realised was it was a museum with lights that caused a flicker on my GoPro. I've experienced that once before when I went to the Winnie the Pooh museum. And when it happened, I ignored it and continued recording, and then had to try and get rid of the flicker on edit. It's incredibly difficult, and the footage I had to cut a lot, and I still got flickering. So I didn't want to continue filming and have that happen. So what I did was I took a series of photographs so that I can put them together in sort of a montage when I do the video and have me talking about what I saw. And that means I'm going to dig out my green screen, hopefully, to have those photos behind me, it will prompt me to get my green screen set up again. It was interesting this morning. I arrived at the same time as an entire coach party of people who were booked for a talk. And then when I went into the chapel, and you couldn't film in the chapel anyway, I took a couple of shots from the doorway outside, and there was a lady in there, and she said she just set up her projector and she was expecting a coach party, and I said I would only look around for a few minutes and then leave. But then I went sort of back in a U to go into an exhibition called Women at War, and she'd moved and she was in there, and she also said, I'm just expecting a party of people. So I didn't get to view in there, but I will doubtless go back another time and be able to see that, perhaps before I do put out the November video, I'm not sure. From there, I went to the garden centre that I'd put in a previous video, and I bought, because they got a 50% sale on, and I bought a tray of 20 plants, only little ones, they were primroses, to put in the garden, because I thought if there's 20 I can split them and put 10 in the front and 10 in the back, and they were reduced to £2.10, which was incredibly cheap, and it's given me a little bit of colour in the front, and the ones in the back actually were more sort of, there were just leaves on them, nothing else, because that's why they'd been reduced. But it gave me some plants that I put in a planter that was in the back garden, so they'll give colour. Their primroses will grow throughout the winter and flower again in the spring, so I've got them ready for that. Anyway, I'm now sat here eating some strawberries, which I'd got in the fridge and had forgotten I'd bought. And it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I thought I'm going to have a strawberry snack. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I will tell you what I do tomorrow. So today's Thursday and I went out filming this morning. I'm trying to film 2 different areas of London and show the contrasts between them and the differences. The area I was in this morning didn't quite work with the previous area that I'd filmed before, so I'll have to save that one to go with a different one that I film later. I quite like the idea of doing some contrasting areas, showing the differences between them, because there are so many boroughs in London and they all have different characters. This afternoon I was editing my birthday vlog and I mowed the grass in the backyard. This was because I'd seen this squirrel hunting for nuts, and he was almost disappearing. The grass had got so long. It was like up to his front paws, which he was sat with them sort of tucked under his chin, and then he'd dive amongst the thick grass, disappeared completely, and was rummaging around looking for things he'd buried previously, and then he popped back up again. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. The grass has grown so long. The trouble is I was waiting for it to be dry before I cut it, because you're not supposed to cut it when it's wet, and I could still see drops of water from the dew of the morning, and it was late afternoon when I mowed it. But I took my life in my hands and I mowed it anyway with the electric mower, and it's so much better out there. It looks brilliant, and it kind of, even though the filming that I'd done in the morning hadn't gone too well, I was still pleased with the day because I got that done. Okay, Friday. Now, Friday I went on a day trip to Brighton to do some filming. My mistake was I had listed out in my notes app the streets where I could find street art, because Brighton is famous for various things. It's pavilion, and one of the things is street art. And since I do London street art shorts, I thought if I visit, I will film their street art and put some Brighton street art shorts out. But it wasn't the only reason I was going. I wanted to go down to the sea. Now, the beach was a pebble beach, so not what I would normally choose. But it's only an hour away from London to get there, so it's the closest sea that I can get to. But it didn't work out well at all. What I should have done is looked on a map on my laptop before I went how to navigate from the station to the seafront, because that proved so difficult. And Google Maps was definitely playing up today, because I rely on it to make my way around, and it was doing fine when it was showing me the streets, how to get to the streets with the street art in, which was reasonably easy. They were close to the station anyway. So I took that, and that went brilliantly. I got 60 photos, which is incredible, and I'll split it into various shorts and put it out. Probably in November that will come out, because I've got a lot of things scheduled at the moment. But getting to the seafront, oh my goodness. I had 3 times I ended back at the same church. And every time Google Maps said, it's 25 minutes away. And then I'd walk and check it again. And it would say, it's 25 minutes away. And I thought, clearly it's not working, because if it was, that time would be reducing. The little arrow, which is me walking along, had definitely got closer along the line. And it wasn't until I had sort of proof of that was when I Google mapped how to get back from the seafront to the train station, because I did actually find the sea eventually. And when I Google mapped my way back, it was clearly sending me the wrong way. because I looked at it and I thought, well, hang on, I remember the name of that road, so I know that road leads to the station. Why is it making me do this big out of the way U shape to get back to the same place? It just made no sense at all. And I also needed to be back at the station for a certain time, so I couldn't afford to follow Google Maps. And eventually I shut it off and just went by my own remembering of how I'd got there. But yes, and I must have spent at least an hour trying to find the seafront, which was insane, and and made me sort of grumpy, as you can imagine. And when I did get to the sea, I only had about 15 minutes on the beach at max, and had to head back because, like I say, I'd got a train booked, so I had to be on a certain train. But I mean, I love being by the sea, and when I was stood talking into my GoPro, the sound of those waves lapping on the beach was wonderful. But I then did this thing where there were some teenagers further along the beach, and I'd gone under the pier and out the other side of it just to avoid being right next to them because I was talking into my GoPro. And they decided they were all going to throw stones in the sea, which is, it's one of those things loads of people do on the beach, but not all of them could aim very accurately. And when their stones were sort of pinging off bits of the underneath of the pier, I thought, I can't really go back that way for fear of getting hit with a stone. So I had to go up the other side of the pier, try and get up to the main road again. The beach is really difficult because it's sort of in levels or banks and they're all big stones. And what I found is, as I got to the last sort of level that I needed to climb up, it was as I put my foot on it, the stones were sliding and the level was just, it was like a hill of stones, and every time you put your foot on, it just slid down and slid down and slid down, and you weren't getting up it. So I had to sort of do a run up it to go as fast as possible, and then lost my footing and landed on my knees on the top bit. And this shocked woman walking past on the roadside of it shouted across to me, "Are you okay?" And I just put a thumbs up, and then I sat down and assessed the damage. I'm okay. I had leggings on, and there's a little bit of scrapings on my lower calf, but other than that, I'm fine. And I was able to walk back to the station, which shows I was fine. But it was just like, can anything else go wrong? And I don't do day trips out of London often, but the last one I did to the sea, I think the video is called something like Away with the Seagulls or something. And that one worked out much better. It was the level of the place was flat, and I easily found the seafront by just walking towards it down the main street, and there it was. And I was following some people that had got off the train anyway that time. But I found it very easily, and it gave me time to walk along the beach and to go on the pier and stuff like that. But I just didn't have any time at Brighton, where I went today. But never mind, it's a learning experience. See, every time I go somewhere like that again, I will make sure I have looked and have got this plan in my head or on a piece of paper of how to get from the station to exactly where I want to go, and not rely on Google Maps. I mean, most of the time it's very good, but when it isn't, it really isn't. So, so that was my Friday. Sort of the end of the working week that I had off work. And I always think the days that you're not in work when you would normally have been, you value more, because tomorrow I go into a weekend, which I would have got anyway, even if I had been in work. So this is Saturday, and I'm going to wind up my week of podcasting here. This morning I went for my flu jab. It was at a medical centre, and usually I book one in sort of Boots or a pharmacy. And what I will say is this appointment at a medical centre, we were just all queued up, and they split us into two sides of the alphabet, and then while we were in the line they were asking us to roll up a sleeve, and then there was two nurses, one either side of the corridor, and they were just asking you a few questions, rubbing your arm with a swab and injecting you and pointing you to the exit. Didn't even get to sit down. I will say, when I've booked in a pharmacy, they always have people sat down. So that was a difference. I always tell myself after having an immunisation that I must take it easy and have a relaxing day. So when they were sort of like, jab, okay, out that way, and you end up in a car park, completely the other side of the building that you came into, and it was like, okay, so I don't need to sit down for 5 minutes then. It's on your way. I just picked up lunch bits on my way home and came straight back home. And I've had a couple of hours just chilling with YouTube and my Kindle, and everything's fine. I think if you're going to have a reaction, it would tend to be soon after you've had it. I was looking back over everything that I filmed this week, and I'm really pleased with how much I've got done, and I don't particularly need to film anything else this weekend. So that's the reason I'm going to wind up this podcast today, because I'm not planning to do anything sort of notable tomorrow at all. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, and come back next time. Bye for now.